Hello friends, welcome to my channel Creating Essence. I am Megan. Thanks so much for stopping by. If you're new here, I am a wife to one, mom to six, homeschooling, building up our own suburban mini homestead here in Southern Virginia. Today I am doing the mommy tag. I was tagged by my precious friend Michelle over at Common Life. If you are not subscribed to Michelle's channel, do it! Do it now! She is such an awesome lady. I have had the distinct honor of meeting her and her kiddos in person, and I can't wait to get back and visit them again. They are an awesome family, and her channel, especially if you homeschool, is incredibly encouraging and resourceful. I've got my tablet here with the questions, and I just thought this would be a really fun way to help you all get to know me and my family a little more and things I might not have mentioned before. Actually, a lot of them I don't think I've mentioned before. There are 20 questions. Most of them are about like your first child, or assuming that you only had one. I've had 6. So I will probably answer in a variation of ways in between all of that. Number 1, how old were you when you had your first child? I was 22. Number 2, what was the hardest thing about being pregnant for 9 months? That's an incredibly easy answer. Hyperemesis gravidarum. If you don't know what it is, bless your heart. In really short answer, hyperemesis, or HG, whatever you want to call it, is super intense morning sickness. And it's not even morning sickness, it's all day sickness. It is literally vomiting when you swallow your own saliva. Your stomach rejects everything. I personally, for one of my pregnancies, was in kidney failure by the time I was 7 weeks pregnant from the constant severe dehydration and malnourishment. So I was put on a medication for chemotherapy patients called Zofran. Unless your and your child's life depends on it, don't touch Zofran. It saved our lives. Horrible side effects for me and effects for him after he was born. But it saved our lives, and I am grateful. Number 3. Can you think of any good thing you enjoyed during those 9 months? Tons! Despite being horribly sick, I love being pregnant. There's something about being pregnant that I love my shape. I'm someone who has always struggled with body image. I absolutely loved the way pregnancy smoothed out all my curves and I was no longer lumpy, and I love growing a baby, and I love the fact that I can feel the baby moving. Oh, it's amazing. I love it. Number 4, in your opinion, were all the things you heard about childbirth accurate? I didn't hear too much about it until after my first was born, and that was a really, really rough birth because I was super duper unprepared. And with my second, I was determined to be more prepared, so I kind of latched onto like birth stories. I became a birth junkie, and I just read all the stories and all the blogs and watched all the videos. And everybody's experience is so different, and there's so much that plays into what happens during childbirth that I feel like that's a hard question to answer, because everybody's experience is different, and what you hear might be true for you, or it might not, or it might be the exact opposite. Number 5, would you have handled childbirth differently if you could redo it? With my first, absolutely. Absolutely, there are things that I could change, not because of my care provider. My care provider was incredible. It was me personally who was unprepared and so full of hubris, thinking my great-grandmother gave birth in a potato patch and then slung the baby on her back and kept going. And my grandmother gave birth to all her children in her farmhouse and then milked the cows that night. Like, I got this. And my other births, in between my first and my 6th, they were all very much their own, but I appreciate them for what they were. My 6th, I will post his birth story in the info box below in case you would like to see it. He was my rainbow baby. Our 5th was born into heaven in the 2nd trimester, and it was a very traumatic surgical birth. He was born the way he needed to be, and I just had If I could do it over with my sixth, I would have a doula. I talk about that, the reasons why, in that video if you want to see. But I really wish that I had a doula who could emotionally walk with me and connect with me during the third trimester that was so hard for me, and then carry all that into birth with me, knowing me so well and being there to support me. And my husband is wonderful. He jokingly calls himself a doodla because he is so incredible with birth, and we've been through this a lot, and he knows the things. And but I wish I had had a second person there to, in essence, hold my arms up in battle, because I just needed more. But I did, and I wish I had listened to myself in all those panicked moments in the third trimester. But I was kind of cocky because I am a doula myself, and I literally thought, like, I'll doula myself. It didn't work. Number 6, what would be your advice for someone who is about to have a baby? Number 1, read Ina May's Guide to Childbirth by Ina May Gaskin. There is so much in that is just empowering, and when it teaches you about the birth process, and when you know how the birth process works, you understand it so much more, and you can work with your body, and when you know what it's doing, it's so much less scary and it's less painful, and you just, I don't know how else to describe it. Number 2, you have options. You have options. You are not stuck with a classic obstetrician hospital birth, and if that's what you want, great, but you still have options within there. And if you don't understand your options, get a doula. Science proves every time that they are worth the money. If your insurance doesn't cover it, but insurance often covers it. And I don't say this as a doula, I say this as someone who has watched my friends suffer for years, long before I became a doula. Every woman can benefit, whether it's a C-section, a medicated birth, every woman can benefit from a doula. So I would strongly encourage you, look into that option and see if it's right for you. Statistics have proven that the presence of a doula and the support they provide and the options they provide and how they help you through labor and delivery can help your labor go faster, drastically decrease the incidence of interventions like Pitocin, an epidural, and a C-section, episiotomies, things of that nature, just because they know the things, they know birth, they are with you every second, and they can help you work through it. They know so many comfort measures. Even wonderful labor and delivery nurses don't know, because that's not the only thing that they do, and they're helping so many people at one time. They can't be in your room, hands-on, working with you through every contraction. Unless it be asked, doulas do not replace a birth partner. They can if you need it. If you are a single mom, if your husband is deployed. Doulas also work very hard to support the whole family and help the father know where they can be involved and what they can do to help their wives and really help them connect more in labor, because fathers so many times are just devastated watching their wives go through that pain. Number 7, what has been the hardest thing about being a mom? Being the mom to a dead child. And I know that sounds crass, but it's true. The hardest day with my live children cannot hold a candle to the day my son Asher died and the days after, and walking with the fact that he's not here. What has been the most rewarding thing about being a mom? Getting to connect with these amazing little humans is just, it blows my mind. Number 9, what was the most surprising thing you discovered about being a mom? That kids can have bad days. I know that might seem really, well, duh, to a lot of people, but to me, I really didn't realize that. Yeah, they have triggers too, but kids can just wake up and be having a bad day. They can just be having a bad day, and it can seem totally irrational, but to them it's really huge. They deserve the same compassion and grace and care that you wish you got when you were having a crappy day. What was the best memory you have involving your child? Holding each of them for the first time. Every day is filled with awesome little moments of their own kind, but I would have to say, as far as a single memory that stands out in my mind, it would be their births. It's just, it is literal magic, the birth of a child, and all the things that have to be orchestrated so perfectly in the child's body and in the woman's body, and just how all of that happens naturally and instinctively, and then this awesome human is born into the world, and I get the honor of raising them. I don't know what can top that. Number 11, what was the most exciting milestone? I think probably the first time each of my kids has independently, without prompting, told me that they loved me. That is pretty cool. Number 12, what is the worst thing your child has ever done? Oh, with some kids, the lists are longer than others. With my first, we used to have a Nook, and it was years ago, and she was just learning how to read. They had been told explicitly not to buy things, and they were put on a kid profile where they couldn't. But she saw this Frozen book, an ad for it from Barnes & Noble in the Nook, and she wanted it so bad. The little smarty pants had figured out our PIN from watching us put it in and hadn't told us. Punched it in, switched to the adult profile, bought a bunch of books. You have to have your credit card stored, a credit card stored in the Barnes & Noble website to even use the Nook, which is a pain in the butt, and I super hate it. The Nook was super old, and the only card that had ever been put in there was to a debit card that we no longer used the account, so it was empty. But you know how you do the transaction, then it says, well, if you like this, you may like this. And she was like, oh, I do like that. Y'all, $25 bounce check fees. We had to pay more than $300 for Disney books. My second, guys, a normal day with him is like horrifying for other people. He has autism. He has very little sense of social normalcy. Let's go with most embarrassing. We were at Costco, and he saw someone with achondroplasia in another aisle, and he was like, Mama, why is that person so short? Gaby, that person has what's called achondroplasia. It's just the way they were born. They're a person like you and I. Why is their head so big? But just something about this gentleman with achondroplasia. Just Gabe felt he needed to screen talk and ask 11 billion questions, and I answered them calmly and factually and kept trying to shush him, and he would not be shushed. And I felt terrible, and eventually the gentleman did look at us, and I just smiled and just tried to give my best I'm sorry eyes. With my Rafaela, she's pretty chill. I don't know. Maybe that means something's brewing under the surface. Aaron, he's another one. Like, the list is a mile long. I can't even. And Solomon, he's just cute. I don't know. Give them all time. I'm sure it's coming. Number 13. What habit do you wish your child didn't have? My oldest moans when she eats and she really likes something. She's like, She's done that since infancy. I mean, when we first started her on solids, we would crack up because we'd like, if she really liked us, she'd be like, My second, he has a lot of tics. We just roll with it. My third, when she gets anxious when she's talking about something, especially when she's on the spot, she does a thing in between words. It's just a nervous tic. But sometimes I'm like, you sound like you're about to vomit in between every other word. Can we not? I don't say that to her, to be clear. When she's doing that, I just say, okay, why don't you stop and take a deep breath, think about what you're going to say, and then say it. Because she does it when she's nervous. So I just try to calm her down so she stops going in between words. So that's gross. My fourth, he picks his nose and eats it. all the time. And I tell him to stop, and he says, I can't, it's too yummy. That's disgusting. And Solly, he likes to play Picasso. I swear, he saves his nasty diapers for nap time because it's his amusement during nap time. I super wish he would not do that. What habit of theirs makes you really proud? My oldest is super, super loving toward her little brother, her littlest brother. They have a really sweet bond, and I love it. And you don't even have to ask her to do something to help her brother. If her brother is in need of something or wants something, or she responds instinctively to his needs, and it's really sweet. My second, he loves to soak in all the information. All the information. If he sees something, he reads it, he memorizes it, and he just digs in and soaks it up, and I love that. My third is incredibly diligent and kind. She is the first one to jump in and do something, and even if I leave the room, you know, it's typical of kids. They kind of are like, oh, you're being watched now, I can screw around and play, and she just keeps going. She's got to get it done and get it over with kind of mentality about things, and I don't even have to prompt her to do it. She just does, and I'm really grateful for that. My fourth, he also loves to learn. He loves learning. You can't teach him enough. He soaks it in, and he remembers it, and he loves it. And my baby, he is such a hugger. He's such a lover, and it's so nice. He will just hug all the time. Number 15, do you share any similarities with your child, both physically and personality? My oldest is very tall. She is very, very tall, and I am also very, very tall. My husband is on the shorter side of average. He's 5'8". I'm 5'11". And our oldest is 11, and she is, I believe, 5'3" now. My second, yes, I have massive sensory issues. And my mother has said since my son was diagnosed, if he has autism, you have high-functioning autism too, because you two are exactly alike, and watching him is like watching you as a kid. So there's that. My third, she is my redhead with freckles. We get that together. My fourth, he looks a lot like my family, my German family, but as far as actually looking or acting, he's very stubborn. We both get that. That's nice. He has my really heavy hooded eyelid. Really heavy. None of the other kids have that like he does. Solomon, he has my big head. Like, I mean, really, I can't. I have to wear like large men's hats. You probably can't tell. I mean, I keep it covered with hair. But I have an enormous, enormous cranium. And so does he. Lucky boy. Number 16, where would you like your child to be in 10 years? In 10 years, my oldest will be 21. I would like her to be happy doing whatever it is that she wants to be doing. My second, likewise. He has some extra challenges. I would love it if he were working on being an independent adult by then. That would be really cool. I think for all of my kids, in 10 years, they'll be turning 22, turning 20, turning 18, turning 15, and turning 12. I would love it if they were all happy, healthy, well-rounded, amazing humans. What is something having a child has taught you? Just one thing? My kids have taught me really how to love and how to have grace. I wrote a blog post about it a couple months ago. I believe it's called Grace in Parenting. I will link it in the info box below. I do blog. I blog before I vlog. That's a huge, huge piece of what I have learned while parenting. Number 18, did you imagine you'd be a mom at the age you became a mom? I became a mom when I was 22. I was told at 19 that I would not have children. So, I would not have imagined that 3 years later I would have been happily married and have children. Number 19, describe your child in a single sentence. Annalise, I would say she is incredibly kind and timid, but loving and caring. Gabriel is strong and inquisitive and on his own path. Rafaela is my miraculous little light of joy, and she's stronger than she thinks she is. If you don't know Ella's story, I will put it in the info box below. You need to see that too. My Aaron is strong and mighty and is going to do powerful things. My Asher is my little life-changing firefly. His presence on Earth physically was super short, but he has profoundly changed my husband and I and our family and our children and how we live our daily lives more than I could ever say. And my Solomon, he is loving and he is such a happy, sweet, funny light. And his name describes him perfectly. Solomon means peace and Uriah means light from God. He is absolutely a light that God sent into our lives to bless us. Number 20, how have you changed as a person since becoming a mom? Oh, let me count the ways. In short, when I became pregnant with my oldest, I was racked with anxiety. I had been dealing with an eating disorder for about 12 years at that point. I was insecure. I didn't know how to truly love and have grace and how to delight in the purity of another person. And though I still do struggle with anxiety and depression, I'm one of those people who's truly born that way. I can remember dealing with massive anxiety and depression as a child. I am happy. I am at peace. I am so grateful. I don't see everything happening around me as happening to me, but I can recognize the role that I play in my own life. And I am grateful for the opportunity to play that role. I cannot get over the awesome privilege of having my children, all 6 of them, and being able to delight in them as humans and their unique qualities, and just the immense honor of being their mama. My husband and I acknowledge often how it's just incredible the happy, healthy person that I am now compared to who I was before we had kids. And I'm so grateful that he's stuck by me through all of that. And that is it for this list of 20 questions about being a mama. I'm sure this was long, even by the time I edit it down. I'm sure it will be super long. 20 questions is a lot, and I ramble, so you're welcome. Thanks for sticking around today, friends. I would love to tag every mommy who watches this. If you watch this, do it, please. I really genuinely mean it. I want to hear about you as a mama, and I would love it if you would let me know in the comments below when you've done it so I can go see. And then I will put you linked in the info box. If you do this, I will link you in the info box so that others can go see it too. Tag your friends, tag anyone who would like to do this. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more like this, subscribe by hitting that red button below. That's all. Maybe. Now the cicadas are trying to drown me out. Bye-bye, friends.